Do you have a place in your life for the, let's call it, religious concept of pilgrimage? Is that something you ever think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so my journey with walking kind of all started when I was studying in Spain, and they have the Camino de Santiago there.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to walk a portion of that with my friend over spring break. And I didn't really have any concept of what the Camino was before that. It was
Mm-hmm.
just something where we had a week off and wanted to do something a little different. Um, and so, yeah, that was the first time I had ever backpacked. And it was it was way more than I expected. And I loved it. As I just fell in love with backpacking and with hiking and walking in general at that point. So that was kind of the starting point for me. And whenever I walk, I don't actually really think of it as a pilgrimage until like after the fact, usually on these journeys. And then I like go back and I realize like all the things that I've discovered either about myself or like the universe along the way. And I'm like, yeah, that was definitely a pilgrimage for me,
Mm.
even though I wasn't trying to approach it as one.
Can you enumerate some of the qualities of pilgrimage that are these things that you realize afterwards? Like, I imagine you're talking about like while you're walking, you're walking. You're like, well, look at where your feet are going. You're looking at,
Yeah.
who else is coming in the other direction, whatever. And then you realize some things afterwards. Like, what are those things?
Yeah. Pretty much just like transformative experiences, like realizing things about myself, such as, hey, I have the strength to do this, or I have the confidence that I'm able to do this. Also, just connections that you make with people along the way. Being able to connect on a deeper level with people just based on the fact that you're both doing this weird thing that not a lot of people tap into or have access to, maybe, or even want to attempt. It's just like this different mindset that you're in that allows you to see things from a different perspective, I guess. Um, yeah, and also just this sense of like your problems get really small
Hmm.
while you're doing this thing, because you realize the world is so much bigger than yourself, which is really cool and also is lost so easily, at least for me, when I get back into quote unquote like normal life too.
There's one thing that seems to be about the self-contained context of the experience, and you're talking about shifts in perspective. You're talking about how the sort of shift changes the way that you relate to the stuff back home, and that sort of feels like it's about like the self-contained world of the pilgrimage or the walk. I don't want to call them all pilgrimages for you. And so it's like an end, like it's a journey is the destination kind of thing.
Yes.
But I also feel like pilgrimages have a sort of destination in mind, even if they are like a circuit. There's like a going somewhere quality. So I guess maybe this is a question. It's like, are you going somewhere, or is it temporary? Is it permanent? Where are you going on a walk?
Yeah. So it's, yeah. um, yes is the answer. I guess like when I started, so both with the Camino and then eventually when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, I started these walks and my thought process was I'm just gonna do what I can do. And if I can't make it all the way, like that's fine because I've attempted it. And like that's the cool part I think about the whole process is that, I made it both of those times because I think that having that mindset was such an important part. Like I wasn't dead set on like I need to make it here. And even though I like did preparation and planning and stuff to make that possible, it it was just like listening and like following the natural progression of the walking process.
Mm-hmm.
But like both my friend and I at the start of the AT, we both said to each other, like if we don't make it all the way, like let's just do what we can do and see how far we get. And we'll be proud of ourselves for making it that far, like regardless of how far it is. And then, you know, as we kept going and going, we're like, wow, we're actually like doing this. Like we were both in awe. So I think it is definitely more the journey than having the destination as a goal was important to get us started on
Sure, for
the journey in the
motivation.
first place.
Yeah.
But it was never like that was never the goal in and of itself, was just to make it somewhere. It was just to see where that journey was going to lead us.
So what about the destination of having done the AT or having done the Camino? Like what, like there is a sort of, I don't think I've ever heard this from you. Like you were doing the AT walk when I first found you. And so like, I was just like in the journey, when you finished, I was like, oh my God, what is going to happen now? Like this is the whole world of my experience of this person. But yeah. And so I'm not saying you do this, but I've definitely met people who are like, I've hiked the AT. Like that's a place they got to in their life, is like having done that particular walk. Do you feel that way at all? Do you contend with that feeling? Is it a feeling that you relate to negatively? What is that destination like for you?
Yeah. Finishing the AT was hard. I was kind of in the same spot you were, I guess, with regards to like what now?
Yeah.
And like obviously you know it's going to end eventually, but you never really think about what that looks like while you're in the journey.
Sure.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about actually with people, just because when someone sits down and like asks you like, oh, how was the AT? Like that's such a big question. I can't answer that. It was like a full 6 months of my life that I like lived. So that's why I love stuff like this, being on podcasts and talking to people who like have these intentional deep questions right away, because wow, that's something I can actually focus on and like answer. But when someone is like, oh, tell me about the AT, it's just like, no, sorry. Like you're going to have to come up with something better. And I think too, for me personally, a lot of that is just like, I haven't quite figured out how to process things very well yet. So like processing that entire journey is like difficult and very emotional too. And like I still get emotional about things randomly that I would not expect to like have emotional reactions to. So it's just like it still is definitely like affecting you even after like a lot of time, like over a year now has passed. And it still just like comes up randomly, and yeah.
So you're not there.
No, yeah.
in any
right.
way,
I guess that's a good way to look at it. Like I haven't reached an actual destination still mentally.
Because I was going to ask you, like when you were sort of grappling for how to talk about it, I was going to be like, well, how about from here? How about from a year later? And now I know that would not have been the right question.
Yeah.
So so it's like the journey doesn't end really.
Right. Yeah.
But but the walking has ended, or has it?
Ooh. See, my gut reaction to that is to like a very strong no.
Okay.
And maybe it's just like that's the person like I'm becoming and have decided to be, is a person who does this and like keeps doing it. So to say that it has ended almost feels like giving up or like releasing a portion of myself I'm not really ready to part with yet.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about, I don't know the extent to which your sort of career change, like your naturalism, is a result of this experience. You're nodding in a way that makes me feel like it is.
Yeah, 100%.
So okay. So you're clearly like still walking the trail, if you will, but it's like that's a kind of work that gets you out into the field walking.
Yes, right? Which is like the first reason that I chose it. I went into trail actually considering law school as my next step, and becoming a lawyer. And I was working as a paralegal before the AT, and I hated being in an office. And I was like about to subject myself to this future for the, maybe rest of my life. And so that's when I did the AT, and throughout it, was like, I can't go to law school. And at the time I was still like very much like environmentally focused. So I mean, the goal with law was environmental law. So I was thinking, you know, what can I do instead? And then I was like, well, if I can find a job where I'm outside and moving and like actually doing the things and interacting with the things I love, why wouldn't I do that? So yeah, that was what brought me to that conclusion.
Uh-huh. So something that I wanted to ask about walking itself, like below or beneath like any particular context or place or route, is like about walking as a like, for lack of a better word, kind of thinking.
Hmm.
And this is the way that I use walking in my life. Like I walk, I feel like we talked about this once. Like I haven't walked a long walk from one place to another like that, but I walk around in circles for hours and hours and hours and hours all the
Yeah.
time. And I really do relate to it as a cognitive process, but like not a heady one, like one where I'm using the environment and sort of the sensations all through my body, and like the tiredness and the excitement and you know, the views to sort of stimulate thinking
Hmm.
and creativity. And I guess I use it in my work in a way too, because my work mostly involves writing, and so I need to do the thinking, and
Hmm.
that's kind of where I do a lot of the thinking. I I meet a lot of people who struggle with, and I might be one of these people, struggle with turning the thing they love to do, or like the thing that gives them spiritual solace in life, into a profession.
Mm.
Uh, but I wonder whether the walking part, like the being out there part, and the being able to work that way instead of working at a desk, think and work by walking, is such a big deal for you that like this is the only way to keep doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, I like can't imagine having a profession where like I'm not at like peace and in my element
Mm,
and feeling connected to the universe. Um, I've been like very intentionally avoiding or trying to avoid that outcome in like everything I
mhm,
do. Because that just seems so soul sucking and like defeating to imagine myself like, because I mean, work realistically, if it's not like self directed, is gonna be a huge portion of like my time and effort. And so if I'm not giving that to something like worthwhile in my mind, like I don't want to do it.
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
not gonna yeah, like accept a lesser calling, I guess.
mhm, mhm. So do you use walking as thinking in other areas of your life too? Like has this been a way you've moved and thought all along, even if you
Definitely.
hadn't done
Yeah,
anything
and I think it
conscious?
was unconsciously for quite a while that I would use
Uh-huh.
that as like a time to process or reflect or yeah, just like kind of connect to my values and myself. But it makes sense because I grew up like my parents were very much outdoors all the time and like would take me outdoors, and I spent a lot of time. We have a bunch of trails by my house that I would like hike with them.
Mhm.
Um, and so it just like it all makes sense to me now looking back that I'm in this position. But and I think really I only realized that after hiking the AT is that I need to like be outside and go just I mean, I probably wouldn't even have to walk. I just like the motion and the physicality of it, but I
Yeah.
like need to be in nature somehow to like process things and to like kind of reset my mood and yeah.
So it seems like there's, I mean, you're moving back and forth between these two perspectives so effortlessly that I feel like I couldn't say simply that like moving your body that way is what it's about. It's about an interaction with your surroundings too, right?
Yeah, it's both. And to be fair, like the movement part is really important because again, after the AT, I was so like stationary. I mean, it was probably
Uh-huh.
normal for most people, but I felt so stationary that that's when I got into running because I needed
Oh.
some sort of outlet. I just felt antsy and like anxious. And I
Okay.
like that's the only thing that kind of addressed that feeling was the actual physical motion, more so. And to be fair, it was also winter. So maybe it was just like making up for the being able to be outside in my environment, because winter in Wisconsin is not the most friendly. So
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So it's both, but it's like so definitely this kinetic kind of thinking is a or working things out is a
yeah,
huge thing for
yeah, it
you.
is.
Can I ask about other sort of physical or environmental rhythms in your life? Like, are you like an early riser or a late sleeper? Like, tell me about circadian rhythms.
Yeah. I usually get tired around like 7 or 8 p.m., but I don't go to sleep because that's too early. And then I get this like second wind where I'm like super productive at night, which is unfortunate, I think. Maybe I should just embrace this, but I get really productive at night and like want to do a bunch of things. But then I finally go to bed. Like if I could pick, if I didn't have a work schedule to adhere to, I'd probably like, 11 or midnight, like go to bed and then sleep in till like 9
Mm-hmm.
at least. I love sleep. Even on the AT, actually, we would be the last people out of camp due to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then, we would hike later than people as well. So we would get in late and leave late. But so even when I'm like outside and the sun is up, the birds are out, I'm still dead asleep. Yeah, so it takes me like for my job, I have to get up early quite a bit and it takes me a while. I hate getting out of bed. I'm just so cozy and warm. So yeah. And I will mention too that like I love swimming. I was a swimmer
Oh yeah.
in middle school, throughout high school, and then now I just do it kind of as a form of exercise, but it's a very like similar feeling to me and gives me the same, mental headspace as walking does as well.
Awesome. I react positively to the fact that you had the same cycles on the trail as you do at home, because it just seems like that means you're listening, right? Like that's
True.
natural
Yeah.
for you.
I mean, it like being on the AT really allows you to just like listen to yourself and do what felt natural, because I mean, it's just you alone in the wilderness for however many months. So yeah, that was cool.
So you're pretty active, and have you always been pretty active?
Yeah.
It's it's always interesting for me to talk to people who are naturally active, because I'm naturally very still. I like
Okay.
and it's not that I don't. I mean, like I played sports when I was young. Like I'm not
Mhm.
like a no physical activity sort of person. And of course, like I said, I will walk around in circles for 10 miles. But like it's not an energy level thing, I guess. And that's sort of what I find to be different with like super athletic people, is just there's just like a high frequency thing going on that I don't really have
Mm.
going on. Do you relate to that? Like do you feel, I mean you said antsy, like do you feel like that a lot? Do you feel like you need to move a lot?
Yeah, so that's interesting for me to think about, because I definitely like get these cycles almost of like high activity and then like crashing.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if there's some sort of balance that I still need to discover with my body, but I will. And I mean, it's related to things other than just physical activity too. It's like my mental processes and my productivity. But yeah, I will have like a week or two maybe at a time where I'm just constantly moving. I'm socially making plans. I'm painting and doing art and whatever else. And then all of a sudden I just will hit a wall where I want to do nothing. And I'll just like lay around and, sleep more or kind of do like mindless activities more often, like Netflix, like not even reading. So, and but then in those like downtimes, I just feel bad. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like what my body should be doing. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily antsy, because I just don't have the energy to get myself to do those things that I want to do. Like I won't even go outside or like go on hikes or walk.
Hmm.
Um, and I like have this like deep like sense of dread might be too strong, but this like ugh feeling that like I should be doing these things and I like can't force myself to.
Hmm.
And maybe that's just like I also haven't learned how to rest. So maybe my like I need to be intentional about periods of rest because I am so active in those other times that my body is like, please stop, like give us a break for a while. And I haven't quite gotten the hang of that yet.
When a walk presents itself to you as something that it is time to do, how does that happen?
My body is just like, it's time to go. You know, it's just this like overwhelming sense of, yes, you need to do this.